Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I'm going to be ranking all of the top slash highly played decks in the post-rotation metagame here. Of course, post-rotation it's a big deal, right? It's a big change from pre-rotation. Rotation is losing the oldest year's worth of cards. I've talked about it a lot on the channel, and now we're in it, right? Specifically on Pokemon DSG Live, and I've been playing it a bit, and I've seen other people playing it, and talked to other people playing it, and seen comments and things like that. Of course, as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section as well. And while you're down there, make sure you like and subscribe. But let's hop right in with the actual metagame here and the tiers. The tiers are pretty self-explanatory, S through D, or I guess F, but there aren't any F tier decks on this list. I'm pretty sure that these, as I said, are the most played decks, as well as a few that I think are a little underplayed that are pretty decent. In my opinion, there are some that obviously aren't on this list, like say Festival and Slowking. I just don't think they're super good. But if there are any decks that aren't on here, ask me in the comment section. And there are a few that are a little weird that I like represented in a few weird ways. So I'll explain those as I get there as well. But obviously we do have S tier with Dragapult. With Dragapult EX, it is very good. I do think it is the best deck of the game. I don't think that's a crazy take. I think that's what most people would say. However, it's not as good as I was expecting, or rather other decks are pretty good with rotation. Looking at, I guess I'll pull up Dragapult. There also are a handful of different builds of Dragapult. So I've mostly played Dustor, and I do think that is the best build, and that's what I've seen the most. But there's like Blaziken. I played against that earlier today, because there's earlier today I realized there's a few decks I hadn't really played in this format, so I just gave those a couple of plays there. And the different builds of Dragapult are like fine. I do think Dustor is the best, but it has like the most counterplay as well with like Psyduck, and there's no really counterplay to that counterplay. I guess there technically is with Flutter Mane, but like let's be honest, that's bad. But then, or just a lot of pieces there. But anyways, you have Dragapult, which is very good. You have Dracloak, which is a good engine, not like broken, but pretty good there. And compared to the other engines, it's pretty comparable. But obviously, it's on a very attached to a very powerful Pokemon there. And then you also have the early game disruption with Badoo, which you're relying on. And I just will mention though, the big thing is that the supporters in the game. I made a bunch of videos about this, and really every time I talk about and honestly play post rotation, it's just like so clear how strong how strong the supporters were pre-rotation, and how losing them is like really affecting the game, reducing consistency, making games I'd say more swingy as well. So I'd say in general, you probably want to be running more like decent supporters. That's good against item lock there, and you will be item locked a bunch as well. And Dragapult can use it very well, which is also what makes it so good. But also there are games when you like don't really get the pieces you need, and energy acceleration is a little awkward in the deck. I guess the list I've been playing doesn't really run much, and it's probably a very swingy build. If you haven't seen that, you can check it out on my channel. It runs Telepath Psychic Energy as a 4. But anyways, the deck here is very good. However, there are going to be some A-tier decks. I've done this tier list like this in the past, and I didn't have an A-tier deck, so there definitely will be some here today. There might actually be a bunch. And the tiers are like supposed to be pretty evenly, not evenly distributed, but like evenly, like the distance between S and A, and then A and B, and then B and C is supposed to be kind of the same, and it's supposed to be, representative of how good the decks are, not be like scaled weirdly. But anyways, then we have Mega Lucario. Mega Lucario is the second most played deck in the game right now. Or I guess most played if you separate Dragapult there. It's fine. I've certainly seen this deck a lot. I played it some. I personally just don't love to play the deck. Not that it's like bad, but it's fine. And playing against it, it is weak to, I guess, with Dragapult EX as well. They're weak to Psychic with Clefairy EX there. Weakness is definitely a big issue with the deck. With both decks actually, but a bigger issue with Mega Lucario because you are a 3 prizer there. I will also mention Cynthia's Garchomp EX. This deck hasn't been played. I mean, it's been played some. It's deck 9 grouped together because other is like not, not going to wait. What is this? Okay. I've not. I guess I've seen this list, but I was not expecting Kramer, and I have not seen this card played. But anyways, the other deck doesn't count there, so it's the 9th most played deck. It's played some. I do think it's pretty close to Mega Lucario EX. It plays similarly. Obviously, Mega Lucario EX, you have the Lunatone, and you have Hariyama. But then with Cynthia's Garchomp, you have the Gigabyte and the Roserade and stuff. So you have some different like pros and cons of the different ones, but in general, they play kind of similarly and are both in my opinion. I do think they are pretty close there, to be honest. And Mega Lucario EX is definitely, I mean, it's fine. It's like, it's okay. Going into the format, it was pretty clearly a deck that people were playing a lot and like thinking about a lot and stuff like that. And I don't think it's super amazing. I mean, Mega Lucario EX itself just isn't a super powerful Pokemon, but it can take big knockouts as well and set up your board. And obviously, the fighting stuff's good. Pretty much all the stuff I've said about it before, I think, has held true. I suppose, I don't know. I guess it's A tier, but it's not. It's not like amazing. I've just played a little bit of. I actually just played one game of Cynthia's earlier today. I've seen the deck some, and I've heard people talking about it, and I think it's pretty decent. I actually played against Grass, and then I did win in like a legitimate game, so that was interesting. They're probably not the best test game there. I've certainly played a lot of Cynthia's in the past, though, and it's a deck that has not changed that much with rotation, and so it's like good. Yeah, I'm gonna put it next to Mega Lucario here. I legitimately think it's a pretty decent deck here, and I do think we'll have a good chunk of A tier decks. And I think the metagame has a lot more, um, a lot more decent decks than your kind of than people might think there. But then we have the deck that was hyped up on a similar level to Mega Lucario, I think, which is Raging Bolt EX. This deck I haven't seen too much. It hasn't been played that much. It's been played a little more than Cynthia's. So it's been played some, but it's mediocre. It's obviously a basic toolboxy. Well, it's not really a basic toolboxy deck, but you're running Ogerpon EX, which we have a few decks running Ogerpon. Also bring in Meganium. This is Ogerpon Meganium, which also plays Arboliva EX. I'll get to that in a second. There's also, I guess this deck's been called Slothbox. Slothbox, I think, is, I don't exactly know what's in it. I guess I played it some. But anyways, it's like with Mega Absol, and it's like basic box. It's a basic box deck. It's essentially the Mega Absol deck, except it like runs Ogerpon. So anyways, this deck is, we'll get to that one as well, but they run Ogerpon. Is there another Ogerpon deck? No. Mega Venusaur is also grouped in with Mega Meganium there. If you were wondering, and as I said, I will get to that. But with Original EX, it can do big damage, and it is definitely a pretty decent big damage deck. On the other hand, it's definitely getting one-shotted like all the time, or not all the time, but like a lot of the time, right? So it also needs a bunch of pieces to take big knockouts a lot, and losing Sadas is really bad. The deck's draw definitely feels kind of bad. I don't think it's a terrible deck, I guess, but I honestly just don't think it's super good. It's kind of bursty, and the fact that it can go from nothing to something a lot, and then something to nothing as well. You like lose all your energy when you attack and stuff like that. You don't really have an on-board draw engine. Dealing with Ogerpon EX isn't really a draw engine like at all. It kind of replaces the grass energies, which is like cool, I guess, but it's not really draw. And then you have like Fez, and you can run Noctowl, so you can do some stuff. The deck's not bad, but I do think it is. But then you have Mega Kangaskhan EX. Mega Kangaskhan EX, I guess, isn't the biggest liability because you have probably no more, like just one 3-prizer, and then you're not really running single prizers, so it's not a huge issue, but it's not like ideal to get knocked out either. And there's also Meowth EX, which you're relying on a bunch, which is a liability. So overall, the deck feels okay. I don't know. It's a mediocre deck, to be honest. I'm gonna put it in B tier. I've never been looking at it post rotation, I've always been kind of skeptical of it, and I stand by that there. It can do some decent stuff, but it's not a deck that like maintains a safe board, is what I'd say. It definitely feels like things can fall apart relatively quickly. Like if you played a lot of single price decks, that's kind of how those decks can feel. And I'll get to that actually with Teamwork's Honchkrow, I think is the deck that can happen to the most. But I've noticed that with a lot of decks, but I've definitely noticed that with Raging Bolt. And so it's definitely like you're looking for pieces every turn. It's it's an okay deck, right? It's not a bad deck. It's fine, but I just am not a huge fan of it. Obviously, there's a tier gap between Mega Lucario and Raging Bolt here. I don't think they're super far. I don't know. I might change this as we go on as well. I suppose we'll see. Then we have the next basic deck, which is the Ogerpon Meganium deck, as I'm calling it here, which, as I said, is the same as the Arboliva deck or the Mega Venusaur deck, which do play differently. I'm not gonna lie. I think like Arboliva EX is not good. I think I just don't think it's very good, right? Like I think the stuff you can do with the Ogerpon EX plus Meganium, you could do pretty good damage, right? And people are like, oh yeah, it's the this deck with 2 attackers, and you use, generally when I say this, people are like, yeah, then you use Ogerpon against, like, when you can take knockouts, and if you can't like use like Arboliva, and they're like, yeah, you can like do spread stuff with Arboliva, except the spread stuff isn't actually very good. Like, ideally with spread, you can take a couple of knockouts or finish stuff off, but you're trying to go for like big knockouts, and you can go for big knockouts legitimately with this deck. But on the other hand, with Arboliva, you're looking for like finishing up weak things on the bench. But then what if they like, if they're really that vulnerable, they're probably playing Shaman. If they're not that vulnerable, then it's like not very good, right? So anyways, I don't think Arboliva EX is very good, but I do think that Team Dragapult EX plus Meganium is very good there. And so I do think this deck is pretty decent. It's, you need a bunch of things. You need, realistically, the stadium. You need the stage 2 line, which you can get out of like Dawn, but you're not playing another supporter. Instead, Ogerpon, with the draw there on Teal Dance, is like, it's like a nice bonus, right? It helps you out some, but it's not some like huge crazy draw engine. It's like not really a draw engine. So you can definitely just like miss stuff for a lot of time, and just kind of be doing, realistically, you can like just do the regular Teal Ogerpon EX stuff without Meganium, which is something. I guess it's not very good, but you can do that, and you'll probably be doing that some of the game. But overall, it's okay. I'll put it in B tier. I'll actually put it above Raging Bolt EX. It's fine, right? It's definitely a fine deck. I think with Mega Venusaur EX, that's also like kind of whatever. Allows you to do some big stuff, and it's a card that some decks can't really deal with, but also they probably will just boss around it, right? Let's be honest. So overall, it's kind of cool, but it's a little just mediocre, to be honest, as well. Then we have the basic box deck with Mega Absol. Essentially, it's Mega Absol, with some other stuff in there. If you know me, I'm not a huge fan of this deck pre-rotation. I think with adding more energy types, that's obviously a little sketchy, but it can be good as well. And I think Mega Absol EX is okay. I mean, it is Hand Disruption, which is cool because you don't have that really that much post rotation outside of Unfair Stamp, which is a big deal. But with Mega Absol EX, it's like okay. You definitely do have the issue of having like all these liabilities in play. You're really like, I'd almost, so I've played this deck a little, also played against it, and the best way I can describe this deck is like weakness box, but like backwards weakness box. Like, I'm always being hit for weakness. I don't know how. I guess all the games I've seen with it, someone just like got unlucky with their starter and started like Mega Absol against the grass deck, or started like Mega Kangaskhan against the fighting deck. But it feels, and the weaknesses you're hitting, like your Megas are hitting Darkness weakness, which hits weakness on like nothing. Yeah, it hits weakness on, of all these decks, it hits weakness on Alakazam, which doesn't matter. And then I guess also this is like, could be Jellicent. So it's pretty much nothing there. And then Mega Kangaskhan EX, which actually doesn't hit weakness on anything. So that kind of sucks. You have Team Ogerpon EX to be doing like weakness stuff there. It is kind of fun. You can do some cool stuff, and Team Ogerpon EX plus Energy Switch powering up your different attackers is nice, but it's a little clunky. The payoff is kind of mediocre, and then the damage is kind of mediocre. I suppose you could get lucky with Mega Kangaskhan, and then just overall, it's like, it's okay. I'm not sitting here despising this deck, I guess. I mean, I'm going to put it in C tier. I just like don't think it's very good. C tier, maybe it should be in B tier. That's probably more fair. Should it be B or C? I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think it's super good. I guess probably B tier is fine. Definitely do think it is worse than these other decks, I suppose. I mean, you can do some cool stuff. I do like toolboxy decks, but generally with the toolbox deck, you're like, oh yeah, I got this like cool engine. And I think Meowth EX plus Mega Kangaskhan EX plus Fez is like, it's not like a real engine. It's more of an engine. I think people are like, just playing with this engine or this like pseudo engine, and plus the Ogerpon, and you like get some draw, but you like come up short a lot of the time. You play all these liabilities that your opponent can just pick off in like so many different ways. So it's definitely kind of bad, right? At times, and you're like playing a lot of SCX as well, and also you're like filling up your bench, and then you can do some cool airs, your on depth stuff. I'm not gonna say or deny that. Also, Monkey Dory is like fine, can be useful against like Dragapult, but it's kind of meh there. Then the next deck we got here, I guess I'll talk about the Froslass decks, I guess. Mega Starmie and Minus Grimstyle EX. I haven't seen that much Minus Grimstyle EX. I've seen a lot of Mega Starmie. I think the reason I haven't seen, and people aren't playing as much Barney's is because Mega Starmie is like super popular and it's really cool. I think Marnie's is fine, I guess. You lose TM Devo, so you're looking for some other finisher. And Mega Froslass is that. Like, Mega Froslass kind of is that. Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX isn't that. Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX is, like, fine. I've always said it's kind of a mediocre Pokemon, and I stand by that. But same thing with Mega Starmie EX. They're actually both pretty mediocre Pokemon, like, kind of mediocre stat lines and all that good stuff. So the main thing you're looking at here is going to be the Froslass Munkidora. So it's like Badoo stuff and Disruption, and that stuff is pretty decent. I'm not going to lie. A lot of decks kind of struggle to deal with it. Sometimes if they deal with it, then it's really bad, because then they're cutting through you. They're cutting through your Pokemon, either like your Pokemon like Munkidora or Froslass, which are your sources of incremental damage throughout the course of the game, which case you're losing damage and then committing more resources to that, or you're committing more resources to, like, say, your Badoo or whatever you're attacking with, because that's getting knocked out. And then at that point, you're also not able to spend as many resources as you want on your actual, Frostlasses and stuff like that. And then sometimes your opponent might have healing or like their own Munkidoras, which could be a problem. It's not the end of the world, but it could be a problem there. Then looking at the other Pokemon, though, I will say the Pokemon that I underrated the most here was Mega Froslass EX. It's a legitimately, like, it's one of the most powerful Pokemon in the game in terms of damage a good chunk of the time. It is a three prizer. It gets like one shot like so often. I'm shocked at how much it gets one shot. It feels like it gets. I mean, yes, it has less HP than Mega Lucario EX, but also like it feels like it's always getting one shot for me. And then everybody's like thinking, oh, my opponent can get the easy one shot. Then with Mega Lucario, I'm like, things never get knocked out. But that's probably just due to some weird experiences. But Mega Starmie EX is a Pokemon that is able to do, work pretty well with Froslass and Munkidori there. The energy situation is relatively fine. I don't run Crispin in my list. I don't think you need it. My list is a little different than some other ones. But ultimately, the deck is pretty decent. I do think it is the Starmie build is a little better than the Marnie's build. They are different decks because they have a different main Pokemon, but they definitely play in a somewhat similar way. I'd say the Mega Starmie deck is, I mean, with Mega Froslass, you're using that, so you're relying less on Mega Starmie, and you don't have to have it all the time. Versus Marnie's, it is a Marnie's deck, which is a decent Pokemon, though it requires candy, right? Well, I mean, it doesn't require candy, but in order to attack turn 2, it requires candy. So that's kind of scary with like item lock there, but overall, I'd say both decks are fine. I would say Marnie, or I mean, I'd say Starmie is A tier. I legitimately think this deck's pretty good. I guess I didn't like say this in this video yet, but if you're familiar with the meta in Japan when Perfect Order first came out, because of course Starmie, Mega Starmie EX, I keep like mixing up their names, which is bad. But Mega Starmie is new from Perfect Order, right? And so people are playing it because it's new and it's cool and it's like decent. But and then it like saw a ton of play and was super like good in tournaments, and then it like completely fell off a cliff. So I think it's somewhere in the middle. Generally, decks like that are somewhere in the middle. Then with Marnie's though, I'm gonna put it right below it. I'm actually gonna put in B tier. I do think that you're like I think there, as I said, there's decks in A tier now, but I think they are pretty close to the decks in B tier. I think the tier list, honestly, like, yes, Dragapult isn't a tier of its own, but I don't think Dragapult is super, super broken and unbeatable or anything like that. You can kind of chip away at it with some of these more pingy Pokemon like Froslass. You could do big damage with, Mega Lucario or Rage Bolt or whatever. Ultimately, for your deck, like the grass stacks, you're kind of looking at it and you're like, what do I do? I need to I'm probably not, I guess you need to like go for big knockouts with Meganium as well. That's kind of what you're looking at there. But anyways, Dragapult is beatable, and a lot of these decks are a lot closer than I was expecting. Looking though next at the single prize decks, of which we have two, I guess. I mean, like the way I arranged these is a little weird. But Alexam and Team Rock's Honchkrow, they play kind of similarly. I think Team Rock's Honchkrow is worse. It's less, I just say stable. You have a lot worse of a draw engine in terms of like your Pokemon. Alakazam is based on draw, right? That's its whole thing. And then you also have less energies. Like theoretically, it seems so hard to hit energies with, honestly, with like Alakazam, it can be hard to hit energies as well. But you can theoretically play as many as you want. You run all the energies you can with Honchkrow there, right? So Honchkrow definitely feels more fragile, and it can do some big stuff, can go from nothing to something really big. But I think with Alakazam, Loss of Iono is also quite good, though you are also directly very vulnerable to Dragapult. Unlike with the Team Rockets deck, we have Team Rocket's Articuno, which is a nice Pokemon there. But I will put Team Rockets or Honchkrow in I'm actually not quite sure where to rank this. Obviously, this deck is pretty different than the other ones. I guess I'll also talk about Ceruledge here as well. Ceruledge is a deck that also is doing big damage. Single price decks are doing big damage. They're not playing like what I'd describe as kind of generic single price decks. I guess I will mention, I actually kind of forgot to include this deck. Or I don't know if I forgot, but I was considering it and didn't include it. And that deck is, where is it? That deck's Crustle. I think Crustle's pretty decent. Though it's kind of boring. It's not super good. It's like okay, I guess. But anyways, with that deck, that one plays like, I mean, plays slower like a single prize deck versus these other ones which play kind of aggressive, but then kind of miss. Ceruledge won't miss as often, especially once you're going. You should be fine. Once you're not, if you're not going, you're like not fine. It takes a little bit of time to get set up, but with these decks, you're going for these big one shots, and it's one energy. They're kind of bursty theoretically, but you also kind of need to set up. They're kind of weird, right? But anyways, with the these different decks, I think they're okay with Hansko. I'll put it in probably B tier, probably around here. Alakazam, I think, is pretty good. I will actually put it in A tier. I do think the difference between Alakazam and Hansko is pretty big. Alakazam definitely feels a lot safer. Honestly, I just despise playing this deck on live because you have to count your hand, which is so annoying because as far as I'm aware, it doesn't do it. Or as far as I'm aware, it does it for your opponent, but not like you. It doesn't show it to you. But someone said they see it on mobile. I don't play on mobile. I play on my computer. But if anyone like knows if it shows it, actually, if you're in my Discord server, if you could like send that to me, that'd be useful. Also, I have a Discord server. If you don't know, there's currently a competition for 30th anniversary stuff going on. That's still going on, by the way, if you didn't know that. But yeah, the Hansko deck definitely feels kind of sketchy. It's okay. I think it can do some cool stuff, but it's mediocre. I guess I will also mention Doublade. I've not played Doublade or seen anyone play Doublade, but I think that deck is okay. Then we have Ceruledge. Ceruledge I do think is quite good as well. I'll put it right above Alakazam here. I think it's actually no. I'll put it here. I think it's definitely a legitimate deck. I don't think it's I don't think it's crazy good. I think it can definitely like fail at times. I'm actually not sure if I think it's very close to Alakazam. I think they play shockingly similarly. Alakazam is a single prizer, which is kind of bad, but can be good as well. But overall, I'd say that they are pretty similar decks. Then we got last few decks here. We got Team Rockets, Box or Spidops or Mewtwo or whatever. This deck is okay, I guess. I played it a little. I know some people really like it. Obviously, you got the quarter package and got the quite frankly pretty bad Pokemon, except for like the Mewtwo X has bizarrely like the highest HP essentially ever. It's kind of weird. Not like ever, but it's very very high. And then like it's just such a weird deck. Ultimately, it's okay. It can be pretty good against Dragapult, which is nice, and Grass weak decks as well. So the weakness stuff is cool, but it can definitely go badly as well. The deck just isn't super strong in terms of the stuff it's actually doing. So it's okay, I'll put it in probably B tier. I realize like most of these decks are going in A or B, which is probably fine. But I think this deck is a B tier deck. It's probably going right here. And then we got Zork, and Zork EX is pretty decent. Honestly, with Darmanitan, that's pretty annoying. At times, it can really destroy your opponent. And then the general stuff you're doing is pretty good. Yes, there is no more Gardevoir EX with the rotation, which is like a thing worth mentioning. But overall, I think it's in a pretty good spot in the metagame. Again, I don't think it's like a super, super powerful deck, but I mean, it can be. Honestly, you can do big damage. And then on top of that, you can also do End Darmanitan. And then you have some overall pretty good options. So I'm going to put this deck in here. I'm going to put it. I haven't really played this deck too much. I'm not going to lie. This is one of those decks that also I haven't played too much. Or I just don't think about too much, but it is pretty good. So I'll put in A tier here. I'll actually put it. No, I think it's fine here. I think most of these decks are pretty close. Then we have the last deck. This is the quote Psychic deck. This is Telepath Psychic Energy in a deck playing Dustor. So it could be Diancie, Mega Diancie, or it could be Jellicent EX there. The deck is okay. Honestly, the deck I'm playing is as a Dragapult, or one of the decks I'm playing, Dragapult with Telepath Psychic Energy, which feels quite good. I'm gonna put this deck though in where am I putting this? I'm gonna put it in without Dragapult, it's not super good. Mega Diancie EX is a mediocre Pokemon. I'll put it in, honestly, I think it is the worst of the decks on this list. In some ways it plays kind of like Absol Box, where you're actually not really. It doesn't play like toolbox. But you got these like big basics that always just seem to like die. Well, with Mega Dancy, it seems like you're not doing that much. You're kind of twiddling your thumbs, and you just like lose. So overall, though, I think the metagame, yes, Dragapult I do think is the best deck, but I think it is kind of close, and there are all these other decks here. I'm kind of tempted to move some of these other decks in A tier down, but I think legitimately all the decks in A tier are pretty close, and the B tier decks are pretty close as well. And I think they are close to Dragapult. I think the metagame is honestly pretty decent. The way the games play, a lot of the games don't play close. I'm not gonna lie. So it's easy to think that the metagame isn't like there aren't a bunch of good decks, but I do think there are a bunch of good decks and a lot of different ways to build all these different decks as well. I think people still need to figure it out. To be honest, maybe the metagame isn't actually, if it is like quote unquote solved, maybe once it gets solved, or if it, presumably it won't, but if it does theoretically, then at that point the metagame might actually not be very interesting. But we're not there at that point just yet. This is definitely a video I really enjoyed making though, because I've been thinking a lot about these decks, playing a lot of these decks, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And I'm really interested in hearing and seeing how the metagame develops. But I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.